continuing with the question true or false in lesson 78 part 15, and the question today is the hips start the downswing. Well, it's one of those difficult ones to be dogmatic, true or false, but broadly I would say false. There's a hint of truth in it, but I would err to false. Okay, Luther, you're saying, well, if the hips don't start the downswing, what does? All right, fair question. I think I can be quite dogmatic and firm about an optimum grip and posture address. I think it's something you can learn by rote, you can learn to do it and you can get it right. And I can be fairly hardline about it. And the same I would feel to be true about the backswing. From good grip and good posture, there is an optimum rotation and there's an optimum way of creating power in the backswing. However, when it comes to starting the downswing, it becomes a true art form and there's 1,000 ways to skin that cat. So the question has to be in the context. Do the hips start the downswing on a normal shot or on a particular type of shot? And unfortunately the answer, it depends. I can't be too black and white about this. I do know from high-speed photography, going back into the 40s and 50s, it was obvious to me that Samson at the top, his hips and legs were the first thing to move. But was it a conscious movement? I don't know. If I said you pass the coffee, you step across the kitchen, grab the coffee pot. If I said catch that vase, your hand and your leg would be quick. But I think there's another level, and I call it reflex anticipation. If I asked a kid to spin a pebble, I think his hip and his leg would lead as he released the pebble from his hand to skip across the water. 6 iron. Good pre-shot routine. Load the shoulder and hold. Now at that point, everything is ready to go, and I feel that I can release the club freely. And even though I paused at the top, I could hit you a fairly effective shot. So when I load the left shoulder and stop and say go, I think everything goes in sync. However, if you ask me to do that in a golf swing with no direct or obvious pause, I think you get the situation of reflex anticipation where you turn and the hips and the legs start to, or look to ignite the downswing. Just imagine that kid spinning the pebble. I'm sure he's not thinking about his left leg and left hip, but boy, he's using them. If I hit you a fade shot with the same club, I could open my stance a little bit. I could load and hit your cut. Now that little bit of left to right fade, to me, would mean the hips were clearing in a certain direction. They would be turning this way, getting out of the way quite quickly. However, if you asked me to hit a draw shot and turn the ball over right to left, I would load and then the draw spin movement would send the ball to 1 o'clock. Load. I've hit the ball to 1 o'clock, I've drawn it. Now can you see what my hips did? They cleared this way and through. It was more linear, they were clearing going this way. The fade, they were clearing going left more. So, do the hips start the backswing, true or false? Broadly false, but there's some truth in there. The way the hips behave depends upon, again, the club that you're using and the particular type of shot that you're hitting. You can't impose the same leg action on draw and fade. There is going to be a difference. Let me try and put it in a simpler phrase. Where does hip action come from? I think half of it comes from the backswing. If you coil fully, you've created half your leg action in the downswing. If you coil and your release is delayed, fade, I think your hips will clear more quickly and to the left. When you're hitting draw to 1 o'clock, I think the hips will move in a slightly different direction. So it's an art form. I can't be bigoted or blinkered or dogmatic about it. It depends upon the shot that you're hitting. One of my sort of golfing heroes is Professor or Dr. Paul Hurrian, who devised the Quintic putting laboratory, and he also started to analyse people's footwork on the tour. And I met him one day, and he gave me a book, and it gave me the movement of the feet and the way the weight shifts. So most of us go left heel, right toe, right heel, left toe. It's like a figure of 8 motion. But Paul measured everybody's weight distribution through the swing, every player in the European, 150, 160 guys, and he found that the pros were a figure of 8 going back, but to a man they were all linear going through. And he found that the longer the player was linear, the better the player was. So let me show you that in slow motion. I coil and I deliver through, and I'm going through there for as long as I can. Now my hips are clearing, but they're clearing as the club goes down the line. It's linear. If the club spins out and pulls you across, that's okay if you're fading, it'll make you pull the stronger draw shots. So what Paul realised was that the good player, he went back, figure of 8, but all of the pros on tour were linear. Their weight shift went in that direction. Now, although the weight was going in that direction was the target, the hips were clearing as well. If they cleared a lot, that would be related to a fade motion. So how the hips work is broadly instinctive. Half your hip action comes from the backswing and the other half comes from the intent of the shot in the downswing.